Hi everyone. So today we've been doing some studying and we came across some interesting points or parallels with regards to our living condition as human beings in our relationship towards money within and as the money system that we'd like to point out, discuss and expand on in terms of realizing, seeing and understanding how the solution to making this world a better place for everyone, equal in one, is in fact an equal money system. So at the moment within anthropology, we're studying socio-cultural solutions to problems of human adaptation. Within that, we're currently studying the section managing risk, maintaining relationships, and within that, managing risk, reciprocity, insurance, and other people, which basically focuses on the relationships of and as reciprocity and the varying kinds of reciprocity that exist within the social environment and social networks of human beings within particular specific cultures. And what is also mentioned within that is the difference between the reciprocity between human beings in relation to giving and receiving in social relationships, and then exchange in terms of services and goods within the money system. And then that exchange within the money system is obviously not equal to and one with the reciprocity of giving and receiving in social relations between human beings. So that's just a basic overview in relation to a context of what we're going to be mentioning within some of the quotes that we're going to be discussing here from the study guide. To assist and support with giving some perspective with regards to, for example, why a bartering system based on the principle of reciprocity cannot work to replace money, and why only an equal money system where all receive equal money is in fact the solution. Alright, so let's have a look. And I quote, "In industrial capitalist economies, market exchange is the dominant mode of distribution. It involves transactions in which goods and services are exchanged by means of buying and selling. On the surface, market exchange may resemble balanced reciprocity in that a person gives something and receives something in return. However, it differs from balanced reciprocity in some important aspects." Unquote. This was a quote from Bailey and Peoples in Swanepoel, 2010, 83. And I quote, "Market exchange entails the use of money as a medium of exchange. Market exchange requires the establishment of rates at which goods and services are exchanged, i.e. prices. The prices of goods and services are determined by the principle of supply and demand." Unquote. Now here, I would just like to bring your attention to the last sentence, and I quote, "The prices of goods and services are determined by the principle of supply and demand." Unquote. Swanepoel, 2010, 83. So within that last sentence, where the prices of goods and services are determined by the principle of supply and demand. This is existent literally only within the context of the world system, where a value is given to goods and services equal to and one with only the principle of the supply and demand. Within an equal money system, the goods and services will be determined by the principle of requirement of and as what is best for all, within the principle of and as equality and oneness, in what will be practically required or needed for everyone to be able to have what is required or needed, equal and one, in context of goods and services. So it is interesting how goods and services, for example, within the world, is literally throttled to only be supplied by the demand that is required of it within the world system, which means that goods and services can be produced, most certainly, for and of the requirement and need for all of humanity, equal and one. So within the equal money system, we'll obviously have a look at what particular specific goods and services are required to be distributed for everyone to have an equally as one dignified life in this world, on this earth, where goods and services will not be priced according to supply and demand, but goods and services will be placed within the context of what is required and needed for all equal and one to be able to live with dignity in this world, on this earth. Alright, let's continue. And I quote, "Further, the transaction generally does not reinforce and sustain a social relationship. When you buy something and have paid for it, generally that signals the end of your relationship with the person you are buying it from. In industrialized societies, an individual's social network of people to whom he or she is obligated, or who are obligated to him or her, tends to be much smaller than the social network of people in traditional societies. People increasingly turn to the state or to the private corporations to take care of them, requiring them to put their trust in abstract institutions, which is perhaps less easy to do after the financial woes of the 1990s and the first decade of the 21st century. Since maintaining these relationships with the state or private institutions involves mostly money, the more money one has, the more secure one is. By contrast, in traditional small-scale society, wealth is often measured in terms of the accumulation of wealth, either in the form of money or material objects, but rather by the size of one's social networks. These networks are often created and maintained through reciprocal exchange networks." Maybury Lewis in Swanepoel, 2010, 83, unquote. So here what we'd like to draw your attention to is the difference between the relationships of people and how it has changed through time, where people's relationships now are directly defined in relation to and within money, wherein more within a traditional society, your relationship is more defined within as your social networks, and where one's basic survival was through bartering or through the reciprocal agreement of giving and receiving, and where the value of what is given and what is received is thus agreed upon. Now, the reason why stopping money entirely and going into a bartering system of the reciprocal exchange, of giving and receiving won't work is because that social network relationship of giving and receiving in relation to reciprocity within bartering is based within a particular specific agreed upon cultural context. So within the varied amount of cultures that currently dominate the world, into and as which human being has defined themselves and now exist as and live in, trying to or attempting to have this entire world change into and as a bartering system of reciprocity and giving and receiving, and then deciding the value, the social relations, the relationships, redefining the total culture of cultures into one world culture. And within that, bartering, reciprocity, and giving and receiving will have innumerable, extensive amounts of outflow consequences, taking an extended period of time through and as which one has to redefine culture, social networks, giving and receiving, value, goods, services, and the extent of that redefinition goes into the very definition of culture and relationship. We define the very definition of human beings, and therefore such a solution is totally, entirely abstract. It's not practical in terms of when taking into consideration what is in fact involved within bartering and the giving and receiving relationship of reciprocity within the context of culture, social dynamics, social relationships. Therefore, if one have a look at globally, the majority of humanity's primary relationship is with money. It doesn't matter where within the category of the world system one is currently aligned, lower class, middle class, upper class, elite, or even completely outside of the system, one's relationship, one's primary relationship is still towards money. Therefore, through using that one point of and as money, we can change the whole world in terms of stabilizing human beings on this earth to be able to have what is required and needed for effective living. Through that, one can then start focusing on having a look at the equality and oneness within the principle of who we are as human beings, where we'll then be able to take on and have a look at and pull apart the construct or system of culture, social relationships, social dynamics, and who we are in relation to culture, society, social relationships, and relationships as a whole. What is our first point with regards to a solution for humanity in solving an extensive amount of problems that we're currently facing within the world just because of and due to money? And that is establishing and having an equal money system. I mean, we're going to see changes from war to crime, to child abuse, to prostitution. There is extensive amounts of beings that are doing and living and being who and how they are just because of money. Therefore, to change the world in stabilizing and establishing an equilibrium for all human beings equal and one is to have an equal money system. From there, we simultaneously and during start working on our relationship towards ourselves and each other to in fact establish an equality and oneness between all of us within the world as humanity as a whole, to be able to live on this earth inequality and oneness with ourselves, each other, nature, and the world and existence as a whole. And that solution, the starting point to changing this world and humanity as a better individuals and together, is an equal money system. Thank you.